Good evening. I'm Erin Boucher, Chairperson of the Shrewsbury School Committee. Welcome to our meeting for Wednesday, March 25th. Tonight's meeting is being broadcast live on Selco's channels 29 and 329 and streamed live on Shrewsbury Media Connection's website. Thank you to Liz Poplowski and Shrewsbury Media Connection for their assistance with our broadcast. Tonight's meeting will be rebroadcast on SMC's website and their YouTube channel between now and our next scheduled meeting. The first item on our agenda this evening is public participation. Tonight, we have not received any requests to speak at public participation. Public participation is available to all residents who would like to address the committee regarding concerns of policy, budget, or the performance of the superintendent. In the future, if anyone would like to address the committee at public participation, they must contact the chair in advance of our next scheduled meeting. The next item on the agenda is chairperson and members' reports. Colleagues, anything to share this week? Ms. Sharifapur?
Thanks, Ms. Boucher. I wanted to take a moment to address an item that came up in last night's select board meeting in regards to the school committee sending a public records request to the select board. On Wednesday, March 18th, I submitted a public records request on behalf of the school committee to the select board requesting financial forecasting documents that were shared in public select board workshops in October and November 2025 and also in February 2026. Well, last night during the select board meeting, it was shared that this public records request was in direct response to a joint meeting between the select board and school committee held on March 16th. This is not the case. An informal request had been made in February from the school committee chair to the select board chair to have access to what should be publicly available documents. This was not provided to us. A major responsibility of any school committee centers around the budget, which includes reviewing and improving, working to ensure the necessary funds are appropriated for the district, and that a balance is maintained between needs and resources. All 5 of the school committee members are engaged participants in our town and pay close attention to what is happening across Shrewsbury. For us to be able to provide for the schools, while also being able to make wise financial decisions that affect everyone regardless of having a student in the school system, it is important we have access to materials that will work as a tool in our budget process. In past years, the school committee and the select board have met regularly to keep open communication, but this past year has not been the case in spite of the school committee's request and the override agreement outlining that leadership, defined as the school committee and the select board, will hold at least 2 joint public meetings annually to better inform each other of their ongoing work. In response to Mr. Richards' comment that the school committee may need reminding of open meeting law, in tonight's meeting, much like many meetings we have an agenda item, approval of minutes. On March 12, 2026, the school committee held a public workshop with the agenda item of fiscal year 2027 budget planning. Within our minutes, which once approved by the committee will be posted publicly to our website, the school committee reviewed plans for what would be an upcoming joint budget workshop with the select board on March 16th and the March 19th budget presentation to the Finance Committee with Dr. Sawyer and Mr. Girardi. Members also discussed the need to review budget materials from select board workshops held in the fall of 2025 that had not yet been posted to the town website. The committee reached consensus to submit a public records request for these documents if they were not received by March 16th. As these documents were not received as requested, a public records request was submitted. While I will agree with dialogue from last night that the school committee and the select board currently are not aligned on the budgets, we are hopeful that we can work together in the best interest of our town. Transparency and open communication are key to success, and we look forward to all future conversations.
Thank you. Anything else? No. Dr. Sawyer?
Thank you, Ms. Boucher. I want to reiterate some messages that I sent out in an update to the community this past Friday. I want to offer my congratulations. Last week, I had what for me was an odd experience of watching the school committee meeting on television. So I was not present when the committee deliberated and ultimately voted unanimously to go into negotiations with now Dr. Tiffany Ostrander to be the next superintendent of schools here in Shrewsbury. Dr. Ostrander is here this evening, and I want to congratulate her on this honor of being named the next superintendent in Shrewsbury. And I am confident that she is going to do an exceptional job, and I'm looking forward to working We've already begun having conversations about key transition work in order to make sure that there's a smooth handoff when I retire at the end of June. So I'm excited about her joining the role. I think she will be an extraordinary leader for our community. I also mentioned in my communication that I want to commend Mr. Todd Bazidlo, our high school principal, who's also here this evening, for putting himself forward for consideration in this search. I mentioned that a public candidacy for superintendent anywhere, but especially in your own community, is very challenging. I deeply appreciate Mr. Bazidlo's many successes as principal of Shrewsbury High School, where he's made significant positive impact on what's an outstanding school community there. And again, commend him for putting himself forward and appreciate the very gracious way in which he has welcomed Ms. Ostrander into her new role. I'm also want to say that I'm very grateful to you and the members of the school committee for all the work that you did in many, many hours of engagement in the search to make one of the most important decisions you make as a body. I also want to thank Kelly Siddiqui, our Executive Director of Human Resources, who did an enormous amount of work coordinating the search as well and making sure that the process ran as smoothly as possible. And I want to thank all of our families, our community members, my colleagues on the Shrewsbury Public School staff who participated and provided feedback. I was very gratified in a meeting this past Monday afternoon in this room with our District Faculty Advisory Committee. And we have different representatives from the schools at the different levels. And during our elementary meeting, one of the representatives commented how in watching your deliberations and vote last week and reflecting on the process, that she was just incredibly proud to be both a staff member of the Shrewsbury Public Schools as well as a resident of our community, as so many of our staff are. It's rightfully so that she feels that way, and there was agreement around the table in terms of how that went. She commented about how anyone in the community had ample opportunity to participate as much or as little as they wanted to pay attention, to watch, to see interviews, to send feedback. I think, like most things associated with our school district, it was a first-class process. As a result, the community can be confident that you as a school committee made an extremely informed decision in your vote. So again, welcome to Ms. Ostrander and congratulations. My appreciation to Mr. Bazidlo as well, and thank you to the school committee for that process. And I look forward to working on a successful transition to having a new superintendent. I also will mention that the latest edition of the Shrewsbury School Journal was mailed and arrived at homes last week. I encourage people to read through it. There's a variety of excellent articles about a variety of things happening in our schools. And it's, again, just much to be proud of. I know that our Student Advisory Committee is going to mention a whole host of things that have been happening at the high school. I did mention a lot of the successes we've had recently among students, but I'm not going to steal their thunder this evening, so I'll let them talk about the various things that have been happening there. Again, we're very proud of what's happening in our district, and I would encourage people to read the journal. It's also available on our website under our communication section if someone wants to read the online version. And that is Superintendent's report this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Sawyer. The next item on our agenda this evening is the Shrewsbury High School Student Advisory Committee report. If you want to come forward. Under the Massachusetts Education Reform Act, school districts are required to have a student advisory committee consisting of 5 high school students who are elected by the student body. The SAC is required to meet with the school committee during the year to review various issues of concern to the student body. Mr. Andrew Smith, Shrewsbury High School social science teacher, serves as the faculty advisor to the SAC. So good evening.
Good evening. My name is Gayatri Iyer, and I am honored to serve as the chairperson for the Shrewsbury High School Student Advisory Committee during the 2025-2026 school year. Thank you for having us here tonight. My fellow members will introduce themselves.
I'm Kelvon Sengo.
I'm Sabrina Welch.
Daniel Molina.
And I'm Christian Salvin.
Student life. Throughout the year, various programs provide opportunities for students to learn about life after high school. Student general feelings. With the second semester in progress, SHS counselors have been urging students to think about their future plans. They have been coming in during English blocks and explaining the options students have for next year. For juniors, they came in and explained how to use SCORE and the resources they will soon have through it. They also explained how to view the statistics of others to help set attainable goals for college applications. This has been an extremely helpful tool in planning for their future.
Standardized testing. Sophomores are gearing up for MCAS testing, and juniors recently took the SAT on March 14th at SHS. The PSAT 10 is being offered to sophomores on April 7th in SHS as well. To prepare for these tests, students are taking advantage of after-school activities, review sessions, and extra help blocks after the 6 snow days we've had this year. Teachers have started to offer study guides and host additional support opportunities, while many students are forming study groups to reinforce key concepts. With projects wrapping up and assessments approaching, the atmosphere in the building is a mix of focus and determination.
With college application season coming to a close and final college decisions coming up, many seniors have committed to their next step in their academic journey. Whether through joining the National Guard, signing on to athletic recruitments, or officially committing to college, our students are excited to welcome a new chapter that was nurtured by their Shrewsbury High School education. Seniors have reported feelings of anxiousness, relief, and excitement for upcoming decisions and the start of college. By the end of March, many of us seniors will receive their last round of decisions, so please wish us luck.
The phone policy at SHS is continuing to develop and see success. Many students have reported greater focus in class, and teachers have reached a groove in the ways in which they enforce the policy. As a result, it has begun to feel like a normal part of the school day rather than a new restriction. Many students have shared that they are able to focus more effectively during class when phones are put away. Teachers have also noticed that students are participating more frequently and staying more attentive to tasks at hand. In addition to supporting academic focus, the policy has created opportunities for students to spend more time interacting with one another during the school day. Overall, as the policy continues to develop, it is contributing to a better experience for students at SHS.
Course elections is in full swing at SHS, with students reviewing their options for academic course load next year. Juniors, sophomores, and freshmen have worked with their counselors to select courses that will best set them up for success. They have also been taking advantage of the various programs that the school provides, including the Project Lead the Way courses that are offered. Alongside that, for the next year, new courses are going to be offered, specifically AP 3D, Art and Design, as well as Digital Photography too, and most notably, Medical Interpreting for Spanish and Portuguese, in which people who are bilingual in Spanish or Portuguese can learn medical terminology and learn to translate in medical scenarios.
Capstone. The Capstone Exhibition program at SHS is an opportunity for students to conduct an in-depth independent study project. Over the past 2 semesters, 38 members of the class of 2026 have worked on their capstone projects. These efforts culminated in presentations hosted throughout January. While every student displayed a tremendous effort, some notable presentations were made by members of the SAC. My project was directed towards understanding the housing market in Massachusetts and the large impact it has made on our community. Christian's financial literacy project focused on educating teenagers on a range of up-and-coming financial topics, while Sabrina's Sonder project focused on how she can build connections to those around her. As we seniors ended our projects, 40 selected members of the class of 2027 began their own capstone journeys.
Quarter 4 internships. This year, 11 seniors have had the opportunity to participate in a unique Quarter 4 internship program, allowing them to gain hands-on experience at local biotech, financial, accounting, and other professional firms instead of attending traditional classes. The program, designed to give students real-world exposure in their respective fields, filled up rapidly due to high interest. Students are enthusiastic about applying these skills in professional settings, learning from industry mentors, and preparing for future careers while still completing their senior year at Shrewsbury High. Students prepare for jobs in the field by working in internships during the day instead of attending class at the high school, and their Quarter 3 grades are replicated and inputted for Quarter 4. Additionally, Career Counseling is hosting an internship showcase on May 15th with these businesses and many more.
Co-curriculars. Students continue to participate in the school community outside the classroom.
Our boys basketball team went to the playoffs with a record of 13-7, and Coach Adrian Machado, the head coach of the boys varsity team, ends the season having coached for the 20th year with our Shrewsbury boys basketball team. We'd love to say thank you for your years of service, Coach Machado. Enjoy your retirement from coaching. Our boys and girls hockey team both also made it to the playoffs. Unfortunately, our boys hockey team were bumped out of playoffs first round, finishing their season with an 8-10-2 record, and the girls team went to the second round going 10-7-3 to end their season. For our track and field team, both boys and girls ended up second in the Midland Wachusett League, whilst later in this season, we had brought 8 total athletes to the MIAA D1 State Indoor Championships, managed to place and score points throughout the meet. Safe to say, SHS had a successful winter season.
Club events have seen great success with many competitive seasons beginning this spring. The mock trial team won all three of its preliminary district rounds and advanced to the state level, making it to the top 8 schools in Massachusetts. Not only that, there were 82 students who went to the DECA State Career Development Conference this year, with a record-breaking 35 students qualifying to the international competition in Atlanta, Georgia this coming April. Also, for the speech and debate team, both national qualifiers have occurred, with 9 students qualifying to go to the National Speech and Debate Tournament in Richmond, Virginia, and 23 students qualifying to go to the National Catholic Forensic Leagues Tournament in Washington, D.C. this May. Additionally, 176 members of the Shrewsbury Hostess team tested and are now awaiting their results to potentially advance to the international conference. Lastly, the UMass Central Regional Brain Bee was attended by our school's Neuroscience Brain Bee team. Finalist finishes included 3 SHS students, with Joseph Peng from SHS being crowned as the overall winner.
Events at SHS. Shrewsbury High School has hosted a variety of programs and events.
Spring Musical. The Spring Musical, The Drowsy Chaperone, was an exciting exhibition of our theater department's preparation and talent. With students acting, singing, playing instruments, creating costumes and makeup, and manning the stage to make this event shine over its 3 days of production. Its final showing was the last theater performance at SHS for the class of 26, and the end of the show was marked by a heartfelt goodbye for our soon graduating seniors. The Drowsy Chaperone was one of the theater's best attended performances yet, and I went. It was very, very good. Probably the best one I've seen, so it was a great performance.
The annual NHS Coffee House took place the evening of March 20th in the SHS Commons. Coffee House is an event run by the National Honor Society for student musicians to showcase their varying talents, coming together to enjoy an evening of entertainment. It was a great success, with more than 50 students performing and more than 200 students attending, marking another great year of musicality in the student body.
The annual Shrewsbury Lunar New Year celebration was a success to welcome the year of the fire horse. At this event, many of the Shrewsbury Mandarin students participated to uplift Chinese culture in our community, whether through Chinese dancing, playing drums, or even performing in a fashion show. In celebration of the 30th anniversary of the Massachusetts Beijing Chinese Language School, the language school donated $5,000 to Shrewsbury High School in gratitude for the Mandarin program uplifting accessibility to Chinese education. The Muslim Student Association also hosted their annual iftar dinner to celebrate Ramadan. The dinner featured an array of delicious foods and welcomed students to become educated on the importance of Ramadan. Lastly, the GSA hosted a very successful ice cream social, with $400 raised for the club to continue such events for people to learn about queer representation in media and literature, the different pride flags, and important people in LGBTQ+ history. The event saw the most attendance seen since post-COVID.
For this year's career fair, a total of 40 organizations attended, ranging from the Boston Medical Center and AC Marriott Hotel to even the U.S. Navy. These fairs aid students in discovering careers beyond what they are exposed to in their everyday lives and build interpersonal skills that they can maintain in high school and beyond. With this career fair catered to our sophomore class, many found it provided valuable insight to jobs that are currently being offered in the Shrewsbury community, but also a future look into potential careers that may interest them.
Thank you for supporting the Student Advisory Committee. We are now open to any questions.
Thank you. Any questions, colleagues?
When we're talking about the, let me see, so mock trial, DECA, speech and debate, we're hearing that students are having, everybody wants to do a lot of these clubs. Is there any discussions around having more accessibility to these types of very popular activities?
So, there isn't necessarily a specific amount of conversation surrounding that, but I do know that a lot of people are allowed to try out, and there is a limit on how exactly each team can run, because obviously if there's all 2,000 kids who are part of the clubs, it's very difficult for administration and club advisors to run a club. And so there is definitely limits, but I know for DECA there's been, around 200 people, I believe, on our team, and then speech and debate has about 100 people on our team. Mock trial is kind of small because typically there is only a limited amount of roles that someone can play. And so it is kind of limited to around 20 people per team. But there isn't that much more that I think the school can do in that scenario. But there definitely could be more talks about accessibility for it, but I'm not sure exactly how successful it would be.
Great, thanks. And my second question is around the superintendent search. I know we tried to be very inclusive, and so high school students had the ability to participate. Do you have any feelings on how that went or comments for that piece?
I mean, I didn't particularly aid in that process. However, I do know that it was very helpful for students to also be involved in that process. They obviously got to know some of the superintendents that could possibly be, or the possible options for the next superintendent. And it definitely helped them, and they got to share some of their perspectives, because obviously I know that there were a lot of inclusive opportunities for a lot of different people of different clubs and different events that participate in our community. And so I definitely think that it was very helpful for students and for, obviously, I'm sure, your perspectives.
Right.
Yes,
Because we did have student feedback, which was
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, and having been part of the process myself, meeting the vice chairman and secretary, I really liked within this process how personal, not personal, but like how comfortable the process was in trying to find the right superintendent, like the questions, how I feel like when we were talking, it felt like that guys really heard us in trying to find the right superintendent, because the superintendent is a very huge responsibility, and I myself have been in the process about twice already. First with the major organization NESC, and then with the vice chairperson and secretary. And I really love the process of how thorough you guys were with the entire process and trying to make sure all stones were left unturned.
Thank you.
First off, great presentation. You were all well presented, really informative. Appreciate the kind words about the superintendent search, and actually truly appreciate it, as Ms. Shrewsbury does, around the level of student engagement and how comfortable you were expressing your perspectives. So that was really helpful to us. Thank you for that. Question just for the process context around the phone policy. Can you kind of give me just kind of what that looks like, from your perspective when you start the day?
I would say that, are you asking specifically for a student walking into their first period class? What does that look like for them?
Absolutely.
So it varies ever so slightly from class to class. Like I mentioned, teachers are hitting a groove with how they enforce the policy. So many teachers I found that are successful with enforcing the policy, they take attendance based on the phones being actually in the holder. So they'll go up to holders, students will have an assigned pocket. If the phone's in the pocket, they're present. If the phone's not in the pocket, they're not present, right? So many teachers do that. Other teachers, they look over at the phones and they count them, stuff like that. But generally speaking, you walk into class, you put in the holder, you sit down, you're ready for your day. And I found that speaking with many of my peers and members of the community, I would definitely say students have accommodated to it better than I anticipated. I know early on in the year, there were a lot of reservations around the policy and a lot of resentment from some of the students about the policy. But I would say that over time, it has been accommodated well, and students are reaching more of a flow regarding that. But generally, it's just you walk in, put the phone in the pocket, take it out at the end of class, and you do that by period. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I know as seniors, you didn't have to pick classes again, but have you heard from the different 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade? Are there classes that students would still like to see that we haven't been able to offer? Things like financial literacy, or are there things that are not currently in our program of studies that you're hearing students would like?
I've heard a lot of interest in AP languages, specifically with certain languages that are no longer offered due to limited interest within students. But from the students that were interested in the program, they've definitely reported being very discouraged and upset that that program was not offered. So I would say that that is the biggest course that I've heard feelings about from fellow students. Additionally, with some of the very specific extracurriculars, I've also heard specifically some discourse over not being able to enroll in 2 sciences, where students are very interested in taking 2 science courses. However, our course registration does not allow us to do so. But I've heard a lot of interest in people doubling up on AP Psychology or Human Anatomy in other courses like that, or just doing another elective that is science-based in addition to their main science. So that is something that I've also heard about, with people also being interested in doubling AP Biology with a similar or adjacent elective, whereas they feel as though they'd be most successful in doing those classes side by side because they're learning content that mirrors each other.
To add to that, I feel like one of the reasons we might be seeing a small number of students enrolling in AP languages, I've been involved with the languages for like, a long time. And everyone in the language classes, like no matter what subject it is, I think besides Latin, the grades, it'll usually be like people have like straight A's and then they'll have like a B in the language. And that's not because they're not trying, but the language grading system is like a letter down from the other languages, from the other classes. So a lot of like high performing students or just students who care about their grades will drop languages or won't take the AP, or even students who are in like APs and other areas will take like A-level languages because they don't want to see the grade drop down another letter. And I think that certainly discourages a lot of people from the languages. So I think maybe like taking a revisit at the grading scale in the language department. Another topic that Sabrina touched on that I want to kind of expand on is for social sciences. There's also a cap on students can only take one social science per year. And I know there's a lot of people who are very interested in the social sciences and would like to be able to take two, even if it's just an elective. So if we could look at that too, that'd be great. But I think the language thing is definitely a big one. It's a very common thing for like everyone in the school to get hit with like the one thing lower and be discouraged from taking languages.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Mr. Villicaputi?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the presentation and congratulations to all the participants on the winners across all the activities, as Dr. Sawyer mentioned. I had two questions related to. One is UMass Brain Bee. What is that about?
Yeah.
And how many students participated and what's the outcome?
I can absolutely tell you about Brain Bee. I'm the president of the club, and Brain Bee is a neuroscience tournament team that aims to engage students in neuroscience learning. So the reason why me and my co-founder founded the club around 4 years ago, she's now in college, but we founded it because we saw that there is a deep lack of accessibility for youth to get engaged in brain science. So we want to be able to extend that opportunity to a lot of our classmates who we see had an extenuating interest in neuroscience that weren't being offered the opportunity to engage in their interests. So with the Brain Bee, it's a very special type of club because we run the competition club in a way where we teach after-school lessons. So every week we'll prepare a lesson that goes over a certain chapter of the Brain Bee books, and we'll almost do an after-school class for students to attend to. And then once our sessions are finished with, we'll attend the Brain Bee, and we were actually able to expand our club from 2 members to the largest attending chapter of the UMass Central Regional Brain Bee. And from there, we've had many successes. 2 of the winners in last years were Shrewsbury High School students, so that was both last year and this year. And we've been able to ultimately provide other opportunities as well. After the Bee is over, we do other activities such as watching neuroscience-based movies, doing clinical diagnoses. We sometimes bring in speakers, but mostly that is other students that talks about different jobs in neuroscience people can get involved in. So it's definitely a great opportunity if people are interested in neuroscience or psychology or anything to do with the brain.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. The second question I have is on the career day. How many? So I know it's 40 industry partners attended. How many students took opportunity to go and visit the? Is it only for seniors or is it
Sophomores.
Also mostly
Yeah.
sophomores?
And I think it was advertised to anyone in the sophomore class during a specific period of the day or like different periods of the day where different classes could specifically go. I don't know the exact number of people that attended the career fair, as that's kind of hard to track. However, I believe it was an opportunity for anyone in the sophomore class to attend, and so there were definitely a lot of attendees from what I saw after the half day.
Yeah, usually like the common just like
Yeah.
packed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
It's
That's
booth to booth to booth.
wonderful. Thank you.
I just wanted to thank you all for your excellent report this evening and wish you all well. I know you're all seniors and you're all in the midst of trying to figure out college stuff, so just wanted to wish you all the best of luck with that. Dr. Sawyer?
Thank you, and I did want to, it was packed. I was able to go to the career fair as well, and I know that from Dr. Lozad and Ms. Aries and Mr. Basillo, that the entire sophomore class did attend at different points, kind of staggered throughout that. They did it on one of the early release days during the morning session. So all those students had that opportunity, which was great. One piece, I know you amplified Brain Bee, which is great, and thank you for all the work you're doing on that. I know you mentioned HOSA. I'm not sure people watching on television necessarily know what HOSA is. Can someone explain what that club is and what they do?
I can also explain that one. So, HOSA is Health Occupation Students of America, and we're an organization hoping to get involved students involvement in healthcare professions. So what's really great about HOSA and specifically about the medical field is that there's a big lack of opportunities for students to get involved in medicine, as it's either a very expensive opportunity for kids to get involved in, or it's one that is just inaccessible due to not having many abilities to practice medicine in the practical sense as a young kid because you don't have a license to practice. But with HOSA, it allows you to participate in different competitions for different healthcare sciences. So if you're interested in biomedical sciences, if you're interested in how medicine is applied to mathematics, if you're interested in public speaking, there's really so many different categories that you can get involved in that relate to medicine and an interdisciplinary approach. And that is what HOSA really amplifies, is giving students the ability to compete in a medical competition that can link to so many of their different interests, whether it links to math, speaking, or even business in some regards. And there's so many categories to compete with. You can compete independently with groups, and there's also a leadership board that students can get involved with too, whether that's through research captain, community service captain, or other positions that kids can also get a leadership role in for different medical opportunities.
Terrific. Thank you so much. I did also want to mention, I know Ms. Shrewsbury's comment, that we do offer an elective in financial literacy. I know that's actually been getting a lot of attention because the new potential state standards for graduation requirements statewide are promoting the idea of a financial literacy requirement for all students in Massachusetts. So that's something I think in the coming months and year we're going to see a lot about in the news as well. But I think that the feedback about different classes and access, we have a very robust program of studies, but we're limited, of course, by some factors. One, of course, is space in terms of being able to add programming, and that's something that the high school potential building project in conjunction with the Massachusetts School Building Authority, will certainly be addressing. And in the coming months, there's going to be some educational planning that would look at what possibilities there might be should an expansion happen, as well as obviously personnel and budget and all those different kinds of elements. So we're pleased about the variety we do offer. At the same time, it's great to have student voice around what it is that people are looking for or would like to see more of, or something different in terms of their academic programming. But I certainly want to thank each of you for your presentation and helping us become better informed about what's happening at the high school and the perspective our students have in a variety of things. So great job as always, and we'll see you for another report in May, I believe.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Very much.
The next item on our agenda this evening is the fiscal year 2027 English Language Education Budget and Report. Ms. Manos and Ms. Waylander will provide an overview of the English Language Education Program and current FY26 department budget, as well as a fiscal year 2027 overview. We've had a report enclosed in our packets for this evening, and they will be available to answer questions for the committee this evening. So thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you for having us. Before we get started, I want to say that I'm a little bit of a proud mama bear back there because 3 of the 5 seniors were on my 6th grade speech team way back when. And it's so nice, particularly because my current role takes me to the high school a lot more, that I get to see these students in a lot of different contexts and different capacities. So it was super fun to see them here tonight. Sarah's going to be our technical lead tonight, which I appreciate, but I wanted to introduce myself. I'm Christina Manos. I'm the director for the English Language Education Department for Shrewsbury Public Schools, and along with my colleague Sarah, I am responsible for leading and managing all aspects of our English Language Education program, pre-K through 12.
So thank you for having us here tonight. We appreciate you taking the time to meet with us so we can tell you a little bit about who we are and what we do. We'll also share some of the strengths of our program and discuss our key needs, focusing on how we can meet our DESE mandates and better serve our students. So we wanted to start by just going over a few key terms that you'll hear us use tonight. So first, you're going to hear us talk about our Ls, or our English learners. And these are our students who speak or understand a language other than English. and are identified as L using a tool called the WIDA screener. These students need to develop academic language in order to access the general education curriculum. Another term we'll use is FEL, or former English learner, and these are Ls who have achieved a specific minimum score on the WIDA Access Assessment, which is given annually to all Ls. Our FELs are monitored twice each school year for 4 years to ensure that they continue to build their English proficiency skills. And these are students who no longer need ESL to access the general education content, but are not necessarily on par with their monolingual English-speaking peers. And finally, one other term is ML, or multilingual learner. And this refers to any student that has been consistently exposed to a language other than English. So this is much broader, and it includes Ls and FELs, as well as heritage and world language learners. This next slide gives you an overview of our program here in Shrewsbury. Our English language education program is based on the Sheltered English Immersion, or SEI model, which is the program that DESE requires all districts offer. It's a 2-component model where a licensed ESL teacher provides direct English instruction, and an SEI endorsed content teacher provides English development through content, sometimes called SCI, Sheltered Content Instruction, in their general education classes. And we love this visual because it really highlights how language learning happens throughout a student's day, not just in an ESL class, and how it's a shared responsibility across ESL and content instruction.
We also wanted to share some data around our English learner population in Shrewsbury Public Schools. Currently, we have 343 identified English learners pre-K through grade 12, and that's just under 5.5% of our total school population. That's sort of a small percentage when you consider that almost 40% of our school population has a home language other than English. So we are an incredibly diverse school community, as you all know, linguistically as well as in other ways. Students in grades K through 12, as Sarah mentioned, are identified as English learners through the use of an assessment tool called the WIDA screener in conjunction with the home language survey, which families fill out at the point of registration. At the preschool level, the identification process is just a little bit different, and because we're dealing with our youngest students, is a much broader definition of being an English learner. So at Parker Road, actually 24% of all students are considered to be English learners there. When you look at our 343 English learners, you will see, again, an incredibly diverse population. This slide highlights some of that diversity. This year, about 30% of all English learners are actually new to our district. Some of those students are new to the United States as well, and in their very first experience in a US school, but many others actually have transferred here either from other Massachusetts districts or somewhere else from outside of Massachusetts, but within the United States. 15% of our English learners are considered dual identified students, which means they're students who both qualify for English language education and also for special education programming through their IEP. And our English learners this year come from 35 different countries, and they represent 30 different home languages. And this graphic, which is always a favorite, shows you the diversity in languages, all the many languages that are spoken here. For both country of origin and home language, our largest population by far are our Portuguese-speaking students who come here from Brazil. One other great aspect about our English learner population that I just wanted to touch on for a minute is our students who receive the State Seal of Biliteracy. And I know that my colleague Ken Almeida does a great job showcasing our many students who earn this State Seal, and it's really a wonderful opportunity for students with high proficiency in English and another language, whether that's a home language or a language they have learned through their education with us. In last year's graduating class, 87 students earned the state seal of biliteracy, and of those 87 students, 17 of them were former English learners, which is great. That's 20% of all students who earned it, which was wonderful. I think for me, like the statistic that I'm even prouder of is that 5 of those 17 students were students who entered Shrewsbury schools in 8th grade or after as their first U.S. school experience with pretty limited English proficiency level and acquired enough English by the time they graduated to qualify for the state seal, which means they achieved a certain MCAS score in their ELA MCAS and likely also their WIDA access score. So of those students, 3 exited at the end of, I'm going to mix up which way it goes, I think 3 exited from our program with their 12th grade access scores. The other 2 exited from their 11th grade access scores. So I just think that's really a nice testament to the strength of our English language education that we're providing students. Another fun fact, since the Student Advisory Council mentioned all the seniors going out on internships and what a limited opportunity that was, we also have 2 former English learners out on internships for 4th quarter, both students, again, who entered Shrewsbury High School as their first U.S. school experience and as identified English learners. They've both exited and now have this great opportunity, and they were chosen to participate in that. So I'm proud of them for their hard work and so grateful they have that opportunity.
So all of our English learners in grades kindergarten through 12 have to take the WIDA Access, which is our annual state mandated English proficiency assessment in January or early February. Access measures academic English language proficiency across 4 domains: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And test scores range from a 1.0 to a 6.0, with a 6 representing a level of proficiency equivalent to native speaking peers. Students who score at least a 4.2 overall and a 3.9 in literacy are exited from English language education and reclassified as FELs, or former English learners. And as you can see from this slide, last year we tested 349 students, and 111 of them, or 32%, which is well above the state average, achieved exiting scores. Also, 182 students, or 75% of our students who had progress targets, met or exceeded those benchmarks. We're extremely proud of how well our students do because this is quite a rigorous assessment. The data from this annual assessment is also important because it determines our staffing and our scheduling. Our guidance from the Office of Language Acquisition at DESE tells us that students who score below an overall 3.0, which WIDA calls entering or emerging levels, should have 2 to 3 blocks of ELD each day. 1 block per day is recommended for those who score at or above a 3.0, which WIDA would call developing and expanding. And access results are not released until late April or early May, so that can impact planning for the upcoming school year.
Another factor that definitely can make planning and budgeting challenging for us is that EL populations are dynamic, and it's really difficult to predict from year to year, and that's a conversation we've had before. Trends in immigration, as well as world politics and even local economic factors and the availability of affordable housing, can all influence our enrollment numbers. This chart here gives you sort of a broad view to give you an idea of what our K-12 EL enrollment has been like over the last 12 years. And I just wanted to clarify that the reason we pull October numbers rather than beginning of school numbers is October 1st is the date that we report our enrollment numbers to the state annually. And so that's when they're capturing that data. It's also important for us because, as we mentioned, the WIDA screener has to be administered to every student who comes in with the first language other than English. And this year, I think we've calculated that to date,
175?
we've administered the screener to 175 new students. the beginning of the year, that's particularly intense. We can spend the whole month of September screening new students just to determine who Ls are and are not. So we're actually grateful that we're capturing data on October 1st and not earlier than that for that reason. Like many schools in Massachusetts, in the years after the pandemic, when schools reopened for real, if you will, in the fall of 2021, we saw a significant increase in our EL population, and that peaked last year. And this chart tells you, shows you that quite clearly. From October 2021 to October 2024, we almost doubled. Not quite, but came close to doubling. It was a period of exponential growth for us and many of our students coming in were also newcomers, new to the country, new to US schooling, and in some cases new to schooling completely. So again, those shifting numbers and also shifting needs really had impacted what we needed to provide in terms of staffing and resources as well. Between last year and this year, we actually experienced our first enrollment dip since the start of the pandemic. And that was a very natural place where people stopped traveling and stopped moving. So we saw a dip in the fall of 2020. And this past year, we saw a dip as well. You can see that in October 2024, we had 333 students identified as English learners. And this year, we were down to, I can't even read the small numbers, 288. This represents a 13.5% decrease from last year to this year, which sounds big, and it's certainly not insignificant, but I specifically wanted to showcase the data from 12 years to say that even with this 13.5, almost 14% decrease, this year is still in our top 3 years of EL enrollment for the past 12 years. So yes, it's a dip, and we don't know where things will go next year. But it's not a huge drop in terms of the programming that we need to offer for students. And even when enrollment numbers are shifting and decreasing, the disbursement of students across our schools in the district can shift from year to year, which is another factor that really makes anticipating our needs very challenging. And so for that reason, I wanted to showcase this chart as well, which is only really a 5-year look back, but it's done by school. And you can see that almost 14% decrease looks very different when you see how it impacts individual schools. When you look at Beale, Coolidge, Sherwood, and Oak, they had very small changes from last year, and I think Oak is actually up 1 student from last year. Statistically, maybe not significant, but it just shows you how the trends play out. Floral and the high school show more volatility actually over the last 3 years, with an up and a down and an up in one case. And Patton and Spring, which are our schools with the lowest enrollment numbers, also show the biggest shifts from year to year. And that's because honestly, 1 or 2 families moving in or out can dramatically impact our needs there, where some years we maybe have a 0.1 at Spring, not that we hire a 0.1 teacher, but we assign somebody to go there for 0.1 or 0.2. And other years we need more instructional hours at Spring, just depending on the numbers. Since 2021, the district has been adding ELE positions, and for that we're very grateful. But we've been adding positions each year to meet the needs of our growing population. Now we're at a point where the growth has seemingly stabilized, and we are considering how we best meet our current needs as well as position ourselves to be prepared for what the next year may bring.
So this table gives a summary of our current staffing as well as what we're projecting for the coming year. We currently have 19 ELE teachers and 2 half-time SEI tutors. However, in response to the drop in enrollment that Christina just described, we will reduce our FTEs by 1 at the elementary level for the 26-27 school year, for a total of 18 ELE teachers. This reduction will be accomplished through attrition due to a retirement. As we develop a clearer picture of enrollment at each building next year, we will adjust our teaching assignments across the elementary schools to account for one less elementary ELE teacher. There is also a shift in a funding source. We currently have one position funded by the Emergency Shelter Grant, and due to the end of that grant funding, this position will shift to the allocated budget for next year.
Before we talk about our specific budget requests for the coming year, we also wanted to highlight how federal grant monies enhance our program. We are very fortunate to have Title III funding, which we can use to supplement what we do for our English learners. And different from the other grant money, the Title III money is very specific that we supplement what we're doing. So we can't hire a teacher because the district hires teachers, but we can add tutoring hours, for instance, which are not mandatory. The Title III grant has 3 specific focus areas that they want us to use the money to achieve. One is academic outcomes for English learners. The second one is family engagement. And the third one is professional development for staff members. This slide highlights how we're benefiting from Title III this year. Summer programs, a halftime ESL tutor, great PD for our ELE department, some after-school tutoring to support Els at the high school, and my favorite one is the adult ESL program that we are offering free to parents and caregivers of our English learners. We piloted this program last year, actually through the Emergency Shelter Grant. We were able to do that, and we had 2 cohorts last year, one targeting the population of families who were residing at the shelter at that point, and another one that was open to any parent or caregiver of English learners that we offered at Coolidge. And it was so successful and so well loved that we actually had a cohort of parents in the Coolidge group who begged the teacher to continue last summer, and we were able to find some funds to continue that. And they started up this past October, and are going strong. And I stopped by to see them one night, and I just loved this picture of the parents and caregivers with their students, because thanks to high school volunteers, we've been offering childcare as well. So the students can go and have a little fun, and the parents go and have their time to practice their English. It's really been fun to see their dedication. It is important to note that Title III funding is directly tied to last year's English learner enrollment numbers. So this year we benefited from a nice little bump up. The last 2 years we actually have, because of our growing numbers. So we do anticipate that next year's allocation will likely see a decrease, tied with our numbers. So that brings us to what our budget requests are for the coming year, and it's delightful for me after 4 years of coming and saying we need teachers, we need teachers, we need teachers, to not be saying please may we have more teachers. But the truth is we still need investments in our program to continue to accomplish what the Office of Language Acquisition asks of us, and to continue to align with the WIDA standards and to improve outcomes for all of our students. The 3 key requests that we have all actually fall under the umbrella of the budget for curriculum instruction and assessment, and you heard these requests already described by Ms. Clowder in her budget presentation earlier this month. We wanted to come tonight and tell you more specifically about why these 3 asks are important to what we do. So the first one is actually a repeat of a request we brought you last year to renew our annual subscription to Elevation. Elevation is a data management program that is specifically designed for the data we're required to keep around English learners and former English learners. It is also streamlining the process to move from cumbersome paper record keeping to digital record keeping. So it is improving our efficiency both in producing the paperwork we're required to by DESE, but also to store all of that paperwork to keep accurate records on our students and also to show DESE that we're doing what they ask us to do. It's also, this is our second full year of implementation. Last year, we really focused on how was this tool being used by our department and our teachers, and this year we are branching out, and it's really proving a very useful tool in student wellness team meetings and in having conversations with building administrators about placement and scheduling for English learners, because everyone in the district has access to the data in this platform. So it's not necessarily people having to go look in folders to look up data or come see us and say, can you pull the scores for all these students so we can see, what their assessment data is, how they've been progressing in their English language education. And so it's really been nice, and it enhances, again, that idea of shared responsibility. We are all responsible for the outcomes for our English learners, and we all have access to that data. So it really has become an essential tool for us to continue that work. So we are requesting the funding to renew our subscription for that. Our second ask is around an English language standardized assessment tool to use as a progress monitoring tool. Just like our gen ed teachers are using STAR assessment data to track student progress in literacy, reading, and math, we are in need of a standardized tool to be able to measure our students' progress in their English development. We currently have one data point a year in terms of a standardized tool, and that's WeDA Access. And as you heard, students take the test in January, and we get the data in a good year right after April vacation. That's a big gap. For many students, particularly newcomer students, if you were brand new on January 2nd and took the Access test on January 10th, by April, linguistically, you're in a very different place. And it's very difficult to put it completely on teachers to do the type of assessment data that we need. We need something standardized. We need something that is quicker and easier to administer, like the STAR data, where we can have some set benchmarks, milestones over the year when we want all students assessed. And that will really help us with determining what instruction is, determining when students might be ready to move from 2 blocks of instruction a day to 1 block of instruction a day. It can also be helpful when we are working with a student's team of educators to determine if they are acquiring English at a pace that seems appropriate, or if there are indications that a student might need evaluation to determine if something else might be impeding either their ability to learn gen ed curriculum or to acquire language on pace with their peers. So it's important for a lot of different factors. We are also required to have English learner success plans for students who don't make their annual benchmark on Access, and that's a process that we are continuing to refine. And this year it really became apparent that without a standardized tool, it's a burden for teachers to really track how students are progressing, because we're tracking language proficiency as opposed to academic, the acquisition of academic content. It's just a different process. So it is really important that we acquire something that will help us with that. So that is a new expenditure for us. Unfortunately, we do anticipate that it is an annual expenditure, because most of the tools that are available are things that you either subscribe to or purchase X number of seats in for a year, at the period of a year. So it would be something we would need to renew annually. Our last request, however, is a one-time expenditure. We are looking for funding to purchase curriculum for our intermediate students. I believe it was 3 years ago that we requested funding for newcomer curriculum, and now we are looking for resources to support the language acquisition of our intermediate students. This is important because DESE requires all students have access to high-quality instructional materials, and it's also important to ensure that we're giving students access to those materials at their grade level. It's a little bit different for English learners because a student with a beginning level English proficiency still needs access to materials at their grade level. So purchasing curriculum materials ensures that we are providing that for all of our students. We are also midway through pretty rigorous professional development work with our department to align our chosen curricular materials with the WIDA 2020 standards, and to foster and really support full implementation of this next year with our teachers. We need the materials to put in their hands so that they can bring this good work to our students. So the total of our asks is $36,000, as you can see. And again, 2 of them are recurring, and the last one would be a one-time expenditure.
So just to recap, in order to meet our DESE mandates and adhere to our state guidance, we do have to invest in systems that respond to our students' needs. And the requests you just heard about will enable the English Language Education Department to sustain and strengthen our practices, which align with the district's strategic priorities. So we're excited about these opportunities for our students that result from investing in these systems, and are so grateful for you all that you recognize the importance of these key investments described here tonight. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for the report.
Thank you for your report, and it's always amazing to see how the growth that we've had in a very diverse population. And looking at your request, I think it's modest, because I'm really glad you both mentioned mandate. These are mandated services through DESE, and sometimes people tend to think it's only special education, but we have lots of mandates, and this is one where, since I've been on the board, we've seen tremendous growth in our diverse population, and their needs have to be met as well. So I think it's modest for what you're asking for, and in my work, we talk about working smarter, not harder, and these are things that will allow us to do that and have efficiency and give your staff more time to do other things that they need to do. So I think these are modest asks for the type of work that you're doing, so thank you very much. And one question I have around the program for parents who are participating. I love that. I think there's such an opportunity for people. About how many parents or caregivers are participating, and are there any barriers to people getting there? Is that something that we might have to help with?
We capped the class at, I believe it was 25 participants. When we originally started it, we had 2 educators working together to co-teach it. One of those since had to give that up, and we're down to 1, but it felt like a comfortable number. I don't have recent participation numbers. I will say, excuse me, the current political climate has made engaging with many of our families more challenging than it has been in my years with this department. And so it is certainly impeding some parents' willingness to show up, whether it's at an adult ESL class or at a meeting or anything like that. And that's just the reality of where we are. Having said that, the group of parents that are in this class that's been meeting at Coolidge are pretty dedicated. They will say to the teacher, we don't care that it's school vacation, can we come anyway? Kind of thing. And so in the summer, as much as they all wanted to be there in the summer, it dropped down to around 10 who showed up consistently, and the numbers did come back up for this year. So I think Ms. Anderson has pretty consistently had about 20 parents there. In terms of barriers, I think, again, to speak to it, the current political climate in and of itself is a barrier for many people. There's a lot of fear, there's a lot of uncertainty. I think it's important that we remember that parents are making choices that they feel are in the best interest of their own and their family's safety and their well-being. And I don't fault them for prioritizing that as much as it's painful to see how it's impacting them and their children.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. I think your requests for FY27 are very reasonable, modest, as Ms. Fritz said. Anytime you can reduce administrative tasks and focus more on student success, I'm all for it, because I know there's a lot of rigor in the manual nature of paperwork. So I think that's great to see. In addition to that, I appreciate the efficiencies you noted in your FY26 update around the grants and alternative funding. And I always pause when I see grants, because I think that these dollars may not have been available to us to provide services, right? Just short of $164,000 that we've leveraged. And I think, it takes work to secure that funding, and I appreciate all the work that your team has done to do that. It's not an easy process. It definitely allows us to provide services to our students. You referenced the Title III grants and summer programming. You mentioned the adult ESL program for family engagement, which I think is great. The emergency shelter grants, $97,000 around funding an ELE professional teaching position. These funds that we have, the grant funds, must be used for their intended purpose, right? They can't be used for any other reason, right? And I think it's important for the public to understand that. We're closest to it because we talk about this a lot, but I think it's important for the public to understand how that grant funding is used, but also to feel good about the fact that we've got dedicated staff looking out for our programs and to really secure that money. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. I would just like to respond to that, A, with a hearty thank you, and B, an acknowledgement of Kim Fitzpatrick in the business office, who is really the one who gets, for me, a huge amount of credit for all she does to manage grants. Our Title III grant money is just one small portion of the bigger investments you saw in our more detailed report, and some of that grant money came through grants that DESE gave us because of our situation with the emergency shelter, as well as some of the work that Dr. Sawyer and his team has been doing to make sure that we're taking advantage of all of those resources as well. So I want to acknowledge that.
Yeah, thank you.
It's funny that you said modest because I wrote that down as my word. That is, it's modest, all things considered. But there's so much to be proud of in the English language education department. The 2025 access results clearly demonstrate the strengths of the program for exceeding state averages in progress and attaining the exit scores. I was really struck by the seal of biliteracy because that's hard as it is if English is your first language, but for them, 20% of everyone who obtained the seal of biliteracy were FELs. Like that, you have to be proficient in English and your home. That is hard to do, and that's a true testament to students' drive, but also the program that we have. I also, looking at the budget too, I appreciate your commitment to efficiency. And even though the enrollment numbers have dropped, still higher than we've had in past years, acknowledging that the enrollments dropped and that it adjusted the staffing model down 1 FTE. We still are going to need that education, and you'll be able to shift where the teaching needs are. But I appreciate, looking at the efficiencies and how can, we cut back where we need to, but still be able to provide the services. So thank you for looking at this. I do think it's small asks, all things considered. So.
It's really good.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. Wonderful. Good to see the progress, and also see the sustainment of the learning path and getting all the credentials for the biliteracy and all those things. This is well worth spent effort and the resources in this program. I have a couple clarification questions. One tied to the 10-year enrollment bar chart. So it looks like, correct me if maybe I'm wrong, but it looks like the enrollment trails couple years on once the event occurs, like COVID. It's after COVID hit, it took a couple of years to dip. And also it looks like the dip here is 25. The macro geopolitical events started to hit prior to that, but I think we're seeing the dip now. So will it be a right assumption we may see a further dip down the lane because it's lagging a couple of years before we see the impact in the enrollment based on your experience? What do you
You want me to take that one?
Yeah, it's very hard to predict. I'm not sure how to answer that. Yeah.
I think the best answer is it's very challenging to predict. And I can hear Ms. Clouder laughing in the background because for the first 2 years that I did this job, it was an ongoing conversation. How do we not know better? Because we don't know who's coming. We really don't. Even this year, honestly, we we anticipated that we would likely perhaps have a bigger dip than we did. What we saw this year was a reduction in newcomers coming from outside of the country and an increase of families on the move. Families who, for whatever reason, moving to Shrewsbury from neighboring communities or from other places in the state. So while our newcomer numbers are down, what it was up were our numbers of students who were already identified somewhere else, who maybe are in their second, third, fourth year of English language education coming here. And I could not have predicted that, honestly. You know, housing in Shrewsbury is very expensive, and yet people are still moving here from other communities. So it's hard to tell. I think you're not wrong that this is probably not the end of the decline, but it's also just very difficult to anticipate both the geopolitical factors and also the more local factors.
Wonderful. Thanks for thanks for the clarification. So with the subscription model here, with for elevation and also the standardized assessment, is that cost based per pupil or is per access person? How many people accessing it, like admin?
Yeah, that's a great question. So elevation is tiers based on your English learner enrollment, not your school enrollment, but how many English learners we have. And we're at the lowest tier they have with our current enrollment. So that is as low as we can go.
Okay. And then for the assessment also is the same, right?
For the assessment, we actually are still working to identify which assessment model that we think is the best one. We thought we had identified the tool that we would really move to, assuming funding, and then a month ago, the company that handles elevation sent us an email and said, we just introduced a progress monitoring tool, and oh, guess what? It plays nicely with our data management platform. So we are pending an appointment with them to learn more about their tool to see how it compares to the tool that we had previously identified. The tool that we previously identified, it's a per seat pricing model, and we would want students to test twice a year.
Right.
And so then you're looking at buying a seat for each identified student to test twice a year.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think from the previous presentation too, I think bundling these into one big pack, and also maybe ability to secure multi-year agreements might be a much more
Yes, and
cost-effective in the long run.
And if I can address that, that was a question that somebody on this committee had asked us last year as well. And Elevation does not offer a multi-year discount per se. If you want to renew for more than 1 year, what you have the benefit of is renewing at this year's price. So the price has stayed consistent for 2 years. We paid $7,000 last year. Our renewal quote is $7,000 for the coming year. If we wanted to renew for 2 years, we would be able to renew at $14,000, $7,000 per year. By prepaying, you avoid the potential increase for next year, but we don't know if and what that increase is. I suspect they strategically did not increase because they're hoping to inspire interest in their other new product, but I have no data for that. That's just my supposition.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the report. Super helpful. Just always so striking when you put up that slide with the 30 languages spoken, and it's just the work that you all do is so impressive. I did have a follow-up question to Mr. Veligapudi with regard to the English language standardized assessment tool. So that would be geared towards all students, regardless of elementary, middle, high school level. It would be any student that's in the English language program. Is that correct?
That would be the ideal.
Okay.
Is to administer it to all students.
Okay.
And like the required test that we give from the state, the WIDA Access, it is one test that is leveled for students of different grade levels. So the test has the same name in the same way that 3rd graders and 10th graders take MCAS, but they're not taking the same MCAS. It's that same type of standardized test.
Right. Thank you. That's helpful. I also support your request. I think they're very, as they said, modest and but very would be very helpful in streamlining the program and just building it, continuing to build efficiencies. So thank you very much.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Sawyer?
Thank you. I want to express my appreciation for Ms. Manos's and Ms. Willender's very strong leadership of the department. We are very successful at getting our students to English proficiency, and quickly. And that takes a lot of skill on the part of the educators who work with our students, both our teachers who are in the department, as well as you saw earlier, all of our teachers who are working with because it's throughout the day that they're getting different kinds of support from our teachers and our paraeducators. But I think what is particularly striking to me is not only the skill at which people are providing this, but also just the deep level of care for our students. And you can sense the pride in Ms. Manos and Ms. Willender's presentation about the success of our students. And ultimately, as a public school district, our responsibility is to serve all of the children in our community, all of the young people, so that they have opportunities and can be successful in our community and in our nation and make contributions. And acquiring English quickly and well is a huge part of that for students who come without that. So we're very proud of our program. I'm proud of the work that's being done and really appreciate the report. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda this evening is the fiscal year 27 Information Technology Budget Report. Mr. Phillips will provide an overview of the current FY26 Information Technology budget and proposals for his budget for FY27. Good evening.
Hello, good evening. I just need to connect here real quickly. All right, here we go. Well, thank you. Well, thank you for having me tonight to discuss the technology budget for this year. As you know, the Information Technology Department basically touches almost everything inside the district. Our department runs basically a large mission-critical network serving over 8,000 users across all the buildings. It impacts all the daily activities, operations, teaching and learning for sure, and just back end any connections that we need. The primary drivers for the budget typically is regularly updating our systems that we currently have, implementing new online systems. We're constantly adding new systems. We'll talk a little bit about that, and also making sure that our systems are future-proof as we go through. The strength of the department is definitely based on the investments the school committee has made over the years, especially with our staffing. I think that plays a tremendous impact in terms of what we're able to do. Again, our staff is probably our biggest asset, as I mentioned. Coming in last year, it was really impressive to see the work that the entire team was doing across the district, the pride they take in the work they do, the different responsibilities that each member takes on, and we'll talk a little bit more of that, but can't say enough about the work that the team does and the collaboration that happens between them. We have a little, this may be hard to see at home, but we pulled the number of tickets, and this was from 2 weeks ago, that we've done for the year. So this is from July 1 until, I think, March 11th. So we're at about 10,616 tickets, and these are tickets that were reported. So we're not, so if a teacher comes in and says, I can't connect to my smartboard right now, we're not gonna say, did you put in a ticket, right? We're gonna help that teacher at that point. So these are, especially the high school, my office is right next to that tech team. there's constantly a flow of students coming in with their tech issues. Same thing, we're not requiring them to put in a ticket, but we try to capture the different incidents that are happening for our sake, to figure out what are the major problems, what are certain trends that we're seeing, what are certain things that we may need to spend more time either training or fixing for the future. I also broke it down by, so the way the ticketing system works, it typically comes in, we have each building email, a certain email address, SHS tech support for the high school, for example, parent tech support, and these are posted on the websites, and we'll typically send these out frequently to staff or in the buildings to tell them how to connect to us. But sometimes we have to reassign it too. So a ticket may come into the high school tech support team, but it's a staff member that is having issues at the doors. So we may have like a key card team, and we have certain staff that work with that. Or it could be a phone issue where we then have to kind of reassign it to those different teams. So and again, this is where on my end, I'm trying to get the big picture. What are the big things that we're having issues with? Do we need to move some of our staff to support a certain ticketing that's coming in more often. Ongoing classroom needs. Typically, we have our one-to-one iPads in all the schools. We have 10,000 devices out there. Our teacher devices, we have 1,500 laptops that we're supporting. Apple TVs in all the classroom and projectors. So in every classroom we have those. And we're adding more as more rooms. I think we added 5 at Oak last year because we converted all the rooms into classrooms. So we wanted to make sure that those rooms have the tech that they need for teaching and learning. Learning communication systems, our databases, our student information system, our learning management systems. Last year we moved over to Zoom phones. I think the way we look at tech these days, if it's connected with a wire, we're typically supporting it, and that's how staff really thinks of us. Or if it's online too. So we're finding a lot of our staff, we don't have any instructional tech specialists in the district. So a lot of our staff, they're learning the instructional piece too. Trying to support staff, because when they do come in, they want to know, how can I help you with whatever trouble you're having at that time. We do have an aging printer and copier fleet. We're definitely, as I mentioned, seeing more and more online resources, moving away from physical textbooks to more digital resources. And then what we're seeing in our budget is a lot of vendors are moving away from that one-time cost, where you'd buy your Microsoft Word CD, you install it, and you have it forever. Now it's more of an annual cost where we have to pay for that service every year. For the networking piece, we're seeing networking back-end infrastructure. We're constantly having to upgrade those. I'll talk a little bit about how we've been funding that, but some switches, for example, come at the end of life and no longer supported, and we can no longer update those devices. Then that becomes a vulnerability. So then we have to figure out, how do we get that from out of our fleet. Internet and Wi-Fi access in all the buildings, that's necessary every day. So if you want to know that there's something down, the Wi-Fi is a big one. You probably have the same issue at home with the kids, right? So that's always something we're constantly trying to stay ahead of. Security cameras, similar thing, where we're always monitoring our fleet to see where are issues that cameras may be starting to fail, and we're starting to replace those too. Or access control, getting into the buildings. Everyone now has the fob, the access card, and we also use that across for our copiers too, using a product called PaperCut, so to also reduce on printing. So that's been, and also the added security of everyone having a badge with them at all times. I think that was great from an outsider coming in. Server upgrades and maintenance, that's something we always, again, staying ahead of vulnerabilities, making sure that everything is getting updated. And what keeps me up at night is that backup and disaster recovery. If we were to have an incident, how can we recover? How quickly can we recover to be up and running for the next day for regular school day business? And cybersecurity monitoring and remediation. So, we get tens of alerts a day from our various systems. It's telling us that an account may have logged in from a different country, or this looks like a suspicious login because it's not following a user typical behavior. And sometimes we have to call a staff member, sometimes we have to call a student down to reset their password to make sure that that account's not compromised. We track the systems, so we vet all our systems that our students are accessing, and when students are entering, when staff are entering data, student data especially, into these systems. Because what we also see is we'll get reports of like Epic was compromised, and so anyone who logged in with their email and with their student account, then we have to go back, inform them that this was compromised. Let's make sure you're not using the same password that you use for your email system, because then that account's also compromised. So we're definitely thinking about best practices with our students and staff. Hardware projects. Last year, my ask was to get a new virtual server because it was coming due. We were able to do that this year, and I'll talk a little bit about the creative budgeting that we did for that. We added new network and monitoring systems, and actually discontinued 2 paid services. So we, again, when I came in, I was looking at what are we paying for, what are we getting from these services. Turns out that it was almost duplicative, so we decided we'll definitely drop one. Then we found out that there was a free product that we could actually use that would actually serve us better, so we are dropping that second service. Replaced 10 projectors at Floral. Again, I'll talk a little bit about that later. We are starting to see those projectors fail. They've been there 13, 14 years, and also at Sherwood too. We're adding cameras to blind spots in and outside the buildings. So again, just kind of going through, working with the building principals, finding out where are those areas that we may not have the coverage that we need. We're upgrading our access control systems. So again, for the door access, again, some of those are 8 to 10 years, no longer supported. So we basically had to go in and replace those pretty quickly. And thanks to Mr. Girardi and his team, we were able to find some funding for that, so that was really helpful. And upgrading of the PA system, so for if there are any incidents in the building, we rely heavily on the PA systems, or just for dismissals and morning announcements to let students know what's going on. On the software end, we implemented a new PBIS tracking system. We had a Wayfinder. I think Jane Lazat may have spoke a little bit about that through her presentation, but we did a pilot last year. We did a full rollout this year, we had to support that. The new MCAS assessment system, high school, we just started yesterday, and we got through the first 2 days of MCAS testing, so that's always exciting, and that takes a lot of preparation. That takes a lot of the team getting together, over weeks, testing in each building, making sure that the devices can support it, making sure the devices are updated, working with staff to make sure that they know how to monitor the students on the day of the test, make sure they know how to log into the different systems and so on. We did a network penetration test with an outside vendor, having them trying to come into our systems. We're trying to be proactive here. We want to figure out how can you get in now so that we don't have a bad actor coming in, and then we're reacting to that. So we've invested in doing those tests, and we've so our mobile device management. So managing 11,500 devices, there's no way we can touch them all. We typically touch them all when over the summer when we're unboxing and getting them out to the students. But if we need to push an app to a student or to a group of students, we typically do that through our mobile device management. It's as with that many devices, it started to get a little clunky. So we're going through and having to clean that up a little bit. So we're working through that. And I'll talk a little bit about our ERPs, our enterprise resource planning, our MUNIS system, and the work we've been doing with the town to improve that process. So we spend a lot of time, especially on Brian LaRue, working with the town team, and pretty impressive work there. So the cybersecurity demands, increased pace and complexity, and severe threats. We hear it all the time. It's with the ongoing war in Iran, we're hearing that there is a chance that we may be targeted. So we get reports from federal, state law enforcement daily, just kind of warning us about these different threats that are there. So we're again constantly monitoring, constantly trying to respond. And it has to be rapid. So increasing staff time dealing with those remediation, and then also using outside vendors to evaluate our security posture to make sure that we're in good standing. Paul Latino and I, we actually just presented at the Meta, this is the Tech Directors Conference last week, about the work we've been doing as a team, kind of locking down without locking out. So that was the name of the presentation we did, and it kind of centered around what access do people need. Right? So a simple so our critical systems. There are only 4 people in the district right now who can access it. Before it was a little bit more open, so we want to make sure. And even when we're going in, we're using MFA. We're doing all the best practices. Last year we had the Power School breach, and we found out that was because a contractor had access to this, their login was compromised, and a bad actor was able to go in, and they didn't have 2-factor. So we're constantly looking for best practices, looking for frameworks that we can use to structure our team to make sure we're working in what's in best practices. Also happy to report, I think this came out in the paper that we, our collaboration with Celco and their IT team, we put in a nomination to the state for the work we've been doing around the penetration tests, around the incident response, around the constant monitoring with Arctic Wolf. We were awarded a governor's citation, so we went out to Boston to receive that award. So that was very nice for the team. Celebrating the work that we've been doing over the past few years, really. We've increased cyber awareness training. I think we hear a lot about these incidents happening, and we can try as much as we can on our end to slow down or restrict that access, but it also comes down to the end user a lot of times. So now we're pushing out these trainings, testing. We send out a test to figure out where people are, and we're kind of looking through those results. We send out weekly trainings about, or just an email saying, best practices. If you see an email coming in from your doctor, think first before just clicking on it. Look at that email address. Where is it coming from? So kind of best practices. And we also do phishing campaigns where we do send out emails that comes from us and not from someone else, and then we get reports from that, telling staff who are the ones who clicked on it, and then we'll kind of go to them and say, here's how you would identify that this would be a phishing email. And then as part of that, we're seeing a lot of staff reporting those to us, which is great, and that's what we want to see. And staff reporting it to their general population, saying, "Hey, I received this email. If you do not click on it," So again, that's what we want our staff to be, to get to that proficiency where they're the ones mitigating before it comes to us. So the collaboration with the town, again, Brian's been doing a lot of work working with the town, Rosanna, Julie, Tierney, just kind of, and the benefits office, HR, trying to shore up the MUNIS system. So when I came in, I think it was the first few weeks, I think the town and the schools got together and they were thinking, we have to drop MUNIS. This is not working for us, and there has to be something else out there. As they dug deeper, they realized this would be a significant project to move everything to a different system. So I've spent a lot of time basically going through the system, finding out how they can best utilize all the tools that are already in there. And they're working with their team to also do improvements, do upgrades. And I think we've seen a lot of improvements over the past few months with that. Basically rolling out a new portal with single sign-on, again, best security practices there, and just improving efficiency across. We're trying to reduce paper and just trying to make more systems, or the systems that we have in place, or processes that we have in place, more efficient. Staff and stipend contracts, issuance and collection. This was taking hours to do. Each year where you had to create those letters, get it to the right person, they have to sign off on it. So now we're automating that process. The paraprofessional letter of assignment, issuance, and acceptance. The electronic onboarding for packet completion for new hires. Submitting name changes, and time entry for hourly staff. We're working on rolling that out now too. Again, where instead of putting it in a Google form, somebody has to then put it in somewhere else, and then there's a chance of an error. We're trying to automate most of those processes. We have synchronization going on between the systems. Again, creating less, room for less error, where one person isn't putting. What we found in the process was data was not matching what was in Munis, which is our payroll system, to PowerSchool, our student and staff information system. Name changes happened over time, and it never got updated in one place to the other. And again, because this was a manual process. So through the work with the synchronization, we're starting to see data being definitely cleaner. Staff verifying their information, make sure it's correct. Rolled out Tyler absence and substitute system to replace that paper-based time off request system and the sub-calling. So that's now automated, where staff can now go in, see how much time they have remaining in their bank, sick time and personal days, vacation days. Automating that process, where it goes out to a sub pool and then somebody picks up that job. It doesn't always work, because as you probably know, the sub pool is small, but but having it all in one place does help with efficiency. Query tracking in Munis, position control. So if you are a teacher, these are things that you need access to. So we put you in as a teacher in Munis, you automatically get an email. You automatically get access to our computer systems. You get access to PowerSchool and so on. Or teacher at Sherwood, you automatically get added to the Sherwood distribution list. So you're on that listserv. And then automating the longevity payment issuance. A couple ongoing things, working with the benefits office to basically automate a few more processes. Starting to track employee certifications and licensure, allowing employees to submit their core reauthorization, benefits arrears, and then hopefully we get to electronic purchase order requisitions and receiving. So right now we're doing that by paper. We're working towards getting that to be more more automated or electronic. We rolled out a technology newsletter this year, and that's been getting great reviews with our staff. And again, we're kind of doing best practices. So we have one. I think we'll probably push one out on Friday for the March issue. Just celebrating our staff. Informing staff of best practices, informing them of new things that are coming along. So again, that has been, and again, thanks to the team, this has been a true team effort in terms of getting this out to different articles, writing different articles for different sections of our newsletter. The AI study committee, I think the last time it was here, was a part of that, and again, special thanks to all the members who were a part of that. With the staff members, students, parents, and school committee members. I think we got a lot of work done there, and now we're moving to the next phase. Like, what do we do with the recommendations that came from that committee? So we recently. Amy Clowder and I just met with, or we led a discussion with Anshana Power, or led a discussion with the DLT district leadership team last week, I believe, starting to think through what are certain things best practices that we want to get out to the staff. So, they're not going to necessarily look through that study committee recommendation. We want to get something out that's somewhat bite-sized, that they can know these are best practices and these are things that we should be doing. What AI tools are effective to help staff with their work. So we're kind of focusing on that, but we still have to think about those guardrails that we have to make sure that we have in place. So we're working through that, making sure whatever we get out aligns with our district goals, aligns with our district values, aligns with our district strategic plan. And as we think about it, we have to make sure that our team has make sure that the leadership that's helping form this plan understand that the AI is going to serve the district goals, right? First thing. For the IT team, making sure that we have the infrastructure to support this, make sure we can secure our data systems. And then we have to train our staff because, again, we have to make sure our end users know the best practices. This is a draft, and again, this is we're hoping to get this out soon. We one pager for guidance for our staff. Do's and don'ts. Here are certain things that because users are testing out different AI systems in their personal life too. So we want to give them some guidance similar to the cyber awareness we're doing, where if you're doing two-factor with your bank, then we also want to do two-factor with our systems here too. And then after we've kind of rolled that out, then we also went to a 2-day conference where we were kind of trying to work through a roadmap for these are best practices and a framework, listing out different standards that we would aim to achieve if we were going to be a true, emerging AI district in terms of usage and for all our staff and students. So we're kind of working through that and working through a draft plan that then we'd share with you eventually and with the general community. In terms of leveraging other funding sources, so the cyber awareness training, for example, we got that through a grant from the state. So that's been again that's free to the district, and they've been very supportive with that, and they're trying to roll that out to more and more districts across the state and actually municipalities. So the town actually jumped on board when they heard that we were also doing this. Camera upgrades, we did that through some grant funding. We were upgrading some more computers in the Project Lead the Way labs at the high school, and again using some grant funding. We're trading in our Apple devices every year. So the beauty of having Apple products is they do hold their value a little bit longer. So whenever we collect those iPads at the end of the school year, we'll typically take those, ship them out. We'll go out to bid essentially with different vendors. They'll come in and they'll use that funding to pay down the leases that we have on those those iPads. So that's been really helpful in terms of allowing the program to be sustainable. We've done a lot of the upgrades we've done. We've leveraged E-rate. So these switches that are coming end of life, we're basically getting a 50% reimbursement from the USAC, the federal agency that runs E-rate. So again, subsidizing that cost where we're not paying the full thing out of pocket, and then we're using more and more interns. So we're going to QCC, and so we have a QCC intern right now. We're hoping to get one over the summer to help with, because that's when we have a lot of summer work going, and coming in, helping with breaking down the labs, helping with setting up iPads for the new students coming in. We have the RISE students, and that's been great. They've been coming in and helping us with different tasks, weekly, and they come in really, really excited about the different projects that they've been working on. And we also have a high school intern that's kind of been working through. So we identify students who want to get into the field. So we want to try and get them in. My team and I, we've been going to the career fairs, and it's always exciting to speak to the kids, because I think that's part of a big part of our team. I think they understand technology in schools, and they understand that it's not just this thing breaks and we need to fix it. They understand the importance of why why we need to do this in terms of teachers and eventually students, essentially the students in front of them. A few things that did not make it to our budget, our operating budget. This is asked for a while. It's so there is so we're on the standard version of Google of the Google product, and that basically is our email and Google Drive. So we depend a lot on that. It would be an upgrade to move to the next phase, and it does have additional security tools that and again, I think if I was pushing for anything, that would be the big one. And second big one too is actually USB-C keyboards for the elementary schools. So what we're seeing, so a lot of the building, or all the buildings have the keyboards, detachable keyboards for the elementary students in carts, and then they plug them in, and that just takes a little bit. That does take some instructional time, in terms of having to go get the keyboard and so on. So we're trying to work through a plan to see what would it take to get those students to have more practice on those keyboards, especially because especially as they get to third grade, they need those keyboarding skills for MCAS. So definitely something to think about. Key card enhancement to our key card system. So one issue we're having now. So we have some staff who work for both the town and the school. Or like a big example would be like a police that needs access to our buildings. So we have to go in and issue that card to that staff member. Let Celco, or Celco would then ask or then have one card for that officer, and we have a separate card. That officer goes to a building. They don't know, which card do I use, right? So we're hoping if we are able to get to an enhancement where we both pay the next tier up, then if that officer could have one card and it works at both buildings. That officer leaves and Telco disables them, then it automatically disables in our system too. So we're trying to figure out how we can do that. There are various audio amplification systems across the district that are starting to come end of life. So we just want to make sure we're starting to think about those. Again, we're trying to be proactive here and not having something die mid-concert or something. So we definitely want to think about those investments. And same thing with the projectors at Floral and Sherwood. We've been kind of chipping away whenever funds become available, but eventually we do have to go through and replace that entire fleet. So, in conclusion, technology use is critical across all departments to provide the tools, the impact on instruction and student learning. And again, that's where we look at. My department looks at IT as not IT for IT's sake. It's in the end we're looking to support student learning. We're looking at the most important asset is the existing team. Again, the commitment, the work they've done over the years, the different tasks they take on. So we may have a staff member at the elementary, but they're also at a smaller elementary school. They're also going and taking care of all the phone needs in the school. We have a staff member who's at another elementary, but they're also doing all the key cards and cameras in a different school. So just because someone's stationed in a building does not mean that they're only supporting that building. But if something happens in a building where a teacher has a crisis, we hopefully have that support there, where a teacher who plans that entire lesson and excited to present that day, and their projector died. So it's really helpful to have that person right there to run down the hallway and help and support that staff member. Cybersecurity demands, require proactive measures, and again, that's something we're constantly trying to do, try and stay ahead of all the different changes. And these ongoing investments are necessary, to continue to update all our existing technology. It doesn't live forever, unfortunately. So we're constantly having to figure out what do we have, what's coming due, and making sure we're staying ahead of it, because anything that's no longer supported is vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you.
Thank you.
Question around the tickets, because that's a lot, I can't talk today, a large number of tickets, but we're looking at 8,000 plus users daily.
Yeah.
So I still think it's a large number of tickets, and the company I work for, it was similar, like the kind of one-offs we didn't put tickets in for.
Right.
But it also wasn't showing true volume of work of the IT department.
Right.
So now we do have to put in tickets for every single thing we need, which is kind of, you're like, oh, but
Right.
I think you're shortchanging yourself, because I'm sure your staff is doing a lot more than what we're just seeing in tickets.
Yeah, completely. Yeah.
So if there's a way to capture that in some easy way, I think that would be helpful, because I think you are doing a lot more work.
Completely,
What
yeah.
that shows
Yeah.
for it. A question around phishing, and I think, cybersecurity, that's like at work, that's all, we get more phishing examples. So now we push the phishing button all the time because we don't know. So I'm sure everybody does. But how often are you sending out these examples? And then if someone is having, they're getting caught by the phishing, is there a training? Do they we have to go into a training mode if we do it at work after that?
so that's the next phase to force them to training. So we haven't forced the training yet. So we're sending out once a month. So it's typically coming from the state. So the state typically coordinates through their program, and then we get the reports. But what the tricky part with training for us is trying to figure out when do we fit it in, and then bargaining and everything else. So that's something that's on our list for next. Yeah.
And I think, your list of, again, I'm gonna say it's modest in terms of IT, because if IT doesn't work, nothing works.
Yeah, right.
I mean, if our laptops weren't working tonight, we wouldn't know what to do, or if we're at home. So I think these are things that are needed. Some are more of a capital. When I look at the key card security and then the cameras, like in the world we live in, to me, those are things like I would want us to be funding just from a security standpoint. Is there anything on this list that you have as a higher priority than another one?
So I'd say I think the keyboards is something where we're definitely trying to figure out, because I think that's a direct impact on learning. And then for the security piece, I think the Google Security Suite, because again that kind of helps with the phishing piece and helping with this. So, for example, we have an email come in. So it happened a few weeks ago where a student sent out a student account was compromised and blasted out 2,000 emails. Took us hours to clean those out. With the suite, we could, as soon as we identified it pretty quickly, but it took hours to get it out from everyone's inbox. With this tool, we could get it out in minutes. So just little things like that.
Yeah, and it's that efficiency again. You're able to do other work because we have that. So again, I think these are things that are needed, and when we don't do what we need, it gets more expensive the next year. So.
Exactly.
But thank you for everything you do. I think it's vitally important, and the world goes around because of you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for the great presentation. Just full transparency, I work in IT. There might be a conflict of interest. Clear about that, but I have really tremendous appreciation for what you and your team do. And you outlined it. I mean, we're talking 8,000 users across 10 buildings, if I include central office, right? 18 staff members, roughly, across those 8,000 users, and then that 10,616 tickets that were recorded.
Right.
Not reflective of every issue that was reported, and then that revolving door you described at the high school, just really quick check-ins. I also noticed around the tickets and the breakdown of kind of where they reside, seems like, where there's a higher student population, but also where there are more power users at like the middle and then the high school level, and then at the central office, which is really important to note. And as you mentioned, I mean, our staff is our biggest asset. I'm curious from your perspective around ticket responses, just for public knowledge, like, do you have like a goal, like 24 to 48 hours responding based on the volume of tickets, or how does that work?
Yeah, so we do have a goal of 24 hours to respond, and so I really, the first response typically should happen in 15 minutes. We're trying to get to 15 minutes, so I actually get an email if a ticket has been unassigned for 15 minutes, and if I need to follow up with anyone. So and then our staff also monitors different buildings too. So if a staff member is going to be out, they'll typically inform the entire team that I'm going to be out for that day. So then we know that we're going to be monitoring those tickets, and then we can respond. So there's some things that we'll let the end user know, that the staff member is not there today, but there's some that can wait until tomorrow, but there's certain things that cannot, right? So we try to make sure that we're addressing those.
And then the alignment of staff that you have, right? I mean, do you kind of shift? It sounds like you shift staff around based on where the needs are.
Where the needs are, right? So for example, for MCAS testing today, we had more at the high school because we knew that we couldn't survive with only 2 people there. So
that's good. Yeah, no, I like the intern opportunities that you described to resourceful opportunities around RISE students, and really anybody that's looking to pursue an opportunity in IT, something to consider. But I think, just from my perspective, in terms of the return on investment, we made the investment a couple years ago to shift Brian LaRue to project management and to bring your expertise on board. I mean, the level of detail in this report are things that we haven't seen prior to that shift. I mean, just in just the evolution of this department, I think is really significant. I mean, and I don't typically like to talk about my experience, but I've been in like the IT space for about 14 years across 2 companies, and a lot of what you're describing are like corporate level best practices around phishing, and some of the investments around, so for the project management piece, when it comes to new hardware projects, you talk about the virtual server. I'm in the midst of doing that in my current business, virtualization of servers. That is not an easy task. There's a lot of moving parts, and there are a lot of times where you uncover things that you just didn't know until you got there, right? So I think it's just important for the public to know the return on investment for this department is significant over the last 2-3 years. And what you presented, just super impressed. I also love the partnership that you've established with Selco. I think that's good. And that employee access portal that replaces that old Munis self-serve, again, the level of change management involved with that, older systems, migrating things to a newer, more efficient system to, again, reduce the administrative rigor around kind of managing the day-to-day tasks, coupled with the ability to drive that change amongst the organization, which is not easy to do, right? So I'm very biased. I really appreciate the presentation, and I hope the public realizes the value that we are seeing in this space. So thank you very much for all the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
I'm certainly glad to have you at the helm of the IT department, and truly how much work goes into this. I know that we just touched upon it, but I do want to circle back on something because last month during a select board meeting, there was a discussion about budgets, and one of the select board members had brought up a question, or questioned the shared resources between the town and the schools. And he went on to bring up the fact that there was one IT professional in each of the buildings, and he kind of questioned the cost of it and the efficiencies associated with it. So you did expand on it, but if you could expand a little bit more, so because they're, the staff that we have in the buildings that are working on tickets, they're not just sitting there waiting for phone calls or tickets to be done. There's a lot of other things to be done, which you've certainly highlighted tonight, but could you speak a little bit more to the efficiencies and what truly happens to make sure that we have the right staffing in each of our buildings?
Yeah. So we try to right size each building, right? So we try to make sure that first it's covered, and then the second piece is how many people are going to be in the building. So for example, the high school has 2 staff members. We have to cover 1,800 students, right? So and again, as I mentioned earlier, we're constantly getting different people in the buildings. So schools are different. We don't sit in an office and then just respond from inside that office. So a lot of the work that's happening is in the classroom. We're going to that room trying to help that teacher. So if we didn't have a staff member within that building, something happens. 15 minutes before we could get to respond to that ticket. So I thought so I inherited that, and I thought it's essential. Like that's something that this town is pretty wide, and trying to get across would definitely take some time. The staff members, they do at times. So a typical day they'd come in and go directly to their buildings, making sure that a lot of issues do happen first thing in the morning, right? So a teacher comes in and their laptop's not working, or a student left their iPad and they need a device or something. So getting their building up and running. Then if they're assigned to say camera issues, they'll try to fit that in their day, around tickets are there, but tickets are more things that you can plan for, right? So if a ticket comes in, you can decide, is this something that's going to be urgent, or is this something that I can do later on when the classroom's empty, for example. So then they'll typically navigate their day around that, where I'll go during lunch when the kids are at during their lunch break. I'll run over to be able to work on this phone issue. So that's typically how the department's structured. And again, there are days when we need more hands on deck at a certain building. So April 1st, the team already knows that's going to be the day we're testing at Oak. We're going to be testing 2 grades there. So we're probably going to have as many people on hand at that particular building as possible. And again, it kind of depends on the structure that or what's going on in that tech's building on that day, because some days you can't leave. We have an assistive tech who deals with all the students with special needs, their devices. Similar thing where she may have to go to the building to collect a student device, bring it back to her room so she can support the users in her building, while also trying to support the other users in the district. So
And just to be clear, in case you may have covered this earlier, Mr. Phillips, but in some of the smaller schools, those techs have other responsibilities. So one of the tech at Patton also provides service for central office.
Right. And
The tech at Coolidge is also providing the service for all of our assistive tech devices across all the special education, pre-K to 12.
Right.
So it isn't as if we have an equivalent, full-time equivalent for 300 students versus the ratios we have at the larger schools.
Right, correct.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Veligapudi?
Thank you. Thanks for the wonderful presentation, and congratulations on the recognition from the state.
Thank you.
It's well deserved. So I have one couple of questions. With the tickets in itself, I know there's a lot of separation of categories by what category. What's a significant amount of time that the team is investing in those tickets? What type of are those one-time ones? Are there recurring ones that we can fix it proactively, or so that they don't arise next year or next time?
Yeah. So it depends, right? There are certain tickets that for example, we will see Wi-Fi issues on the 3rd floor at the high school, and we'll get probably one ticket for it because they can't connect to Wi-Fi. That's a quick that's an urgent response because the entire floor is down. Then we have to get there. There are certain tickets where we have personnel. So a lot of the work that Brian's and the team's doing with Munis, we're automating a lot of those processes right now too, where a staff member is onboarded. We'll get a ticket saying that staff member is going to be coming to our building, and that tech then knows that I need to start preparing a laptop for that teacher, and make sure they have an account when they show up at that building. So there are a couple automated things along that line. Then we have my keyboard doesn't work, so this happened last year where we started getting a lot. Over the summer, we normally get the blue Logitech keyboards. If you have a 9th grader or know anyone in 9th grade or 9th or 5th grade over the summer, so we had where the Apple said the keyboards that we wanted would not be available until end of October into November. And we had the iPads in place because we'd ordered those ahead of time because we weren't sure if there were going to be supply demand issues. So we went around and we tried multiple cases. We had them send us samples. So we decided on a brand. Came in, we tested over summer. Looks great. Felt even more rugged than the ones we're going to get. Within the first week of school, we started getting multiple tickets about this that they started breaking, and to the point where we got to 100 at Sherwood, over 100. So, and these were replacements. So we sent them back out. They sent us new ones, and it kept happening. So then we realized now this is an issue. So then we reached out to Apple. Apple was gracious enough to collect all the ones they had sent us originally, and the cases that we originally wanted were now back in stock, and they sent us those and put those, and we got a credit. So at no expense, we ended up getting the cases that we wanted. But that's an example of where we started seeing trends that across multiple users, and so then we realized that we had to act, and we're thankful that we didn't have to go out and buy new ones, but that's a scenario.
Wonderful, thanks. One other quick question. So comparatively, like with the volume of number of tickets, number of activities across the different buildings and supporting central office and all other activities, so how do we compare to other comparable districts? So with the volume that we received, with the amount of staff we have, so where do we?
So that would be tricky to gauge. I could reach out to my community and to find, because typically their ticketing data is not publicly available. It's typically internal, but it's something I could definitely reach out to other tech directors around the state, because I do have. So I am on the tech directors board for the state, so I do have a good relationship with the other members. That's definitely something I could reach out and say.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yeah.
Just wanted to thank you also for your report and for all the hard work that you and your team do every day to keep us up and running. I just wanted to ask you a little bit about your partnership with the municipal side and the work on Munis. With regard to like when you guys put in hardware, like the cameras or projectors, is that work that your team does, or is that public buildings? I just was curious.
Depends on the project. So right now we're getting ready to do the virtual server, for example. So it's going to go to the Parker Road, and we're going to have to be plugging into the municipal infrastructure for power and for internet. We have to plug into their switches, their network switches. So we coordinate with Celco in terms of making sure we have enough power in the area. So we went through, walked it together, and a big reason why it's there is just cooling. We don't really have a good place in any of our buildings where we'd be able to have all those equipment right now, and then also coordinating with the IT team, Celco IT team, to make sure that the where we're going to be plugging in has the right assignments for the schools versus for the connecting to their network. We meet with the Celco IT team once a month. We're meeting on Friday because we do have these shared resources that and to make sure that we're not taking over their systems. Essentially, again, they've been gracious to allow us to connect and to use their space, but they're also starting to think, what does that look like for us? What if we were to move to a new location? I know there are talks about that. Will we have enough space to continue to help to host our team? But again, we've been really grateful for the partnership we've had over the years. Anytime we need anything, they'll typically come in and help us. With camera work, we're typically doing that work unless it's something, again, where we need access to some of their infrastructure or some of their or their power. We'll typically go out and do that our own or contract with a different vendor to come in and do that work.
Right. Thank you. Dr. Sawyer.
I want to thank Mr. Phillips and his team for the excellent work that they do, and we are spoiled in terms of the reliability of our network and our systems and our Wi-Fi, and I know that we hear that school districts that don't have the level of financial stability that we've enjoyed, and maybe haven't made some of the investments in both infrastructure and personnel, where that reliability is much spottier, and it does have an impact immediately on the teaching and learning environment as well as operationally, and that's something that we do an excellent job with here in Shrewsbury, and I deeply appreciate Mr. Phillips' leadership since he come on board, and I would agree that the decision and the support school committee gave to having the project manager position, that's enabled more collaboration and communication across the municipal and school and Celco than we've ever had during my time, and a lot of projects that were ready to go, we wanted to move forward, we just hadn't had the capacity before. So that's been something that we've been really pleased with. So again, your team has been so responsive, and again, I think it's that sense of you don't feel like you're just talking to or interacting with someone who's like some technical, you know, I know there are some smaller districts or organizations that they're outsourcing these kinds of things, right? You know, this team understands, like, the teacher needs the projector like now. Or this is a really critical project that this class is doing and the Wi-Fi is down and we need to get it up right away. That responsiveness, but also the understanding and the care about the mission and what we're doing is really, is very apparent when you work with the IT team. So thank you for all the work, and we'll look to continue to support all the elements that we have going forward. And, you know, as we get towards the end of this current year's budget cycle, you know, if we see opportunities for savings or where there's some funding that's freed up, oftentimes those one-time costs that we can point to IT to get something done that's on the list is something I know Mr. Girardi works closely with Mr. Phillips on doing. So we'll keep an eye on that as well.
Okay. Thank you so much.
And thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to take the next item out of order this evening. Under Finance and Operations, competitive grants for middle school science curriculum. The Open Science Ed is a middle school science curriculum that uses phenomenon-based instruction and is aligned to next-generation science standards. OSE is an excellent match for our existing middle-level approach to science instruction and provides more robust hands-on experiences for students. Our middle school science program has been piloting the use of OSE in various ways, and these grant funds will be very helpful in advancing the implementation of OSE in the coming years. Sherwood Middle School and Oak Middle School have each been awarded a 3-year grant from the 1-8 Foundation to support middle school OSE implementation starting in the 26-27 school year. Sherwood Middle School has been awarded $68,400 in grant funding, which will be distributed over 3 years to support OSE implementation, and Oak Middle School has been awarded $69,900 in grant funding, which will be distributed over 3 years to support OSE implementation. These grant funds will fund the purchase of new materials for science classrooms, teacher professional learning on the curriculum, and support from OSE Massachusetts Community, a state-based team dedicated to supporting Massachusetts schools adopting Open Science Ed. So, Ms. Clowder and Ms. Poitras.
Thank you so much. We put together just a few slides. We know that you'll appreciate that. But mostly, this first slide is just to recognize Pam and the work that she's done, both with her team to orient them to the option of looking at high-quality instructional materials in science, and also for the hours she invested in writing the grant, which was ultimately successful. So the things you're about to hear are due to her hard work and the hard work of the people who went first as pilot teachers in her department. So shout out to all the science teachers at the middle level. As you know from previous presentations, we've talked about the value of high-quality instructional materials as being tantamount to a half-year learning gains for students. Teachers have to think instead about instructional moves and not what they're going to gather for curriculum materials. And the value of high-quality instructional materials is also that typically if they're highly rated, and this is a good example of one, they're aligned so that one learning experience builds on another within a year, but also that's aligned to kind of the state progression, both in terms of the content and also in terms of the science practices. And one of the things that Pam is probably too humble to share with you is her work with phenomenon-based science, so that students really replicate in their learning experiences the things that scientists do in their work. And you can imagine trying to do that if you're a classroom teacher and meet the needs of a really diverse group is an ongoing challenge. One of the things that's really helpful about this opportunity is it takes that philosophy about phenomenon-based science and applies it to a high-quality instructional materials and curriculum. Similar to EL Language Arts, it's an open source curriculum, but it doesn't mean that it's totally free. So the difference between open source and free, it's really nice that not only is this highly rated and standards aligned and prioritizes investigations, and it's really well organized for teachers, but hey, because of all those things, DESE has provided options to partner from a state and also give us some grant funds. So the grant funds are a nice reinforcement of something that we were moving towards already because it aligns so well with best practices. Now I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great. So a little bit about Open Science and why we went with that program. So Massachusetts was one of 10 schools, 10 states that was part of the creation of Open Science. So they participated in steering committees in developing the curriculum. They provided feedback on the curriculum along the way. They did pilot testing of the curriculum. So with Massachusetts backing, it was very enticing for us to look into Open Science. So that's kind of why we chose the program. And so the grant, specifically, it will do a couple of things for us. It will most importantly provide us the professional development. So we know that high quality instructional materials play out in classrooms best when teachers have the professional development that backs them to do the job well. It is a change in teaching style where the teacher becomes the facilitator more than just the director or of the lesson. And so there's a lot of routines that the teachers need practice on before they're ready to deliver them with students. Oak and Sherwood will receive separate grants. So our sixth graders at Sherwood will receive the funding for implementation over 3 years, and our 7th and 8th grade students. We also will become a part of a community where teachers will be able to reach out to other teachers across the state who are using the curriculum.
I can't overstate the importance of the continued support for professional development, because if it's akin to what we've seen in terms of the high quality instructional materials cohorts of practice for literacy, not only is it professional development for teachers who are implementing the curriculum, but it's also professional learning to support the leaders who are supporting the teachers implementing the curriculum. So helping to determine what do you focus on first, how is the best way to kind of help teachers to plan more effectively with this new curriculum in mind, and then what are some kind of nuts and bolts things that the state is going to provide in terms of just direct professional learning support that then takes that off of Pam's plate. She doesn't have to plan that piece. She's going to be part of the facilitation together with teachers, and we've seen that to be a real recipe for success in the implementation of the new language arts curriculum. So, and I think DESE has too, because most of their new offerings, when they have them, are very purposely paired with curriculum support and professional development. The other thing I would say about this particular venture is it's aligned with the 1-8 Foundation, who, as you know, supports ST Math and also Project Lead the Way. And they're very data-informed focus in terms of here's the metrics we're looking for in each year. Helps to both simplify implementation and also ensure that whatever we're doing with teachers impacts students, because that's the whole point. And so that the promise of this grant and the support that comes with it is just deeply exciting, because it's a great affirmation of the work that Pam has already been doing and the department as a whole.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
Okay.
I'm sure Leader will have more.
I like the 4 slides. Yeah. I think Dr. Sawyer mentioned earlier about we've had fiscal stability. So we've been, as a district, and if there was an article in the Globe today, if you read it, about overrides, which is beyond frightening. It was like districts I didn't even know were, and these are huge overrides. I've never seen numbers this big. So we haven't had to worry about that. But we also have people like you, Ms. Poitras, who are writing grants for things that we still couldn't do, and they're going to add, we're lifelong learners, we're looking at continuous improvement in helping students. So even though we have had stability, we still do need these types of programs because we can't afford to fund it in the appropriated budget. So thank you very much, because you have a busy job teaching, and then this is a lot of work on top of that. So, and it's going to add such value, like Ms. Clowder said, for professional development, and then it just goes to our students who are going to get a much better and richer experience. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, please. Thank you. I think, as Ms. Fritz mentioned, it's humongous amount of energy and time invested to get those grants, especially write those grants, and then getting it is the next level. So that's congratulations, and thanks for putting that effort, and also eases some pressure on the budget itself. So this is very helpful. any grant money, any free money is always. Just to understand, with the startup costs, so what sort of costs are we looking at? So this has professional development, equipment, kits, and everything. So startup costs, like, are those like permanent?
Yeah, so the kits supply the materials for the unit. Most of the kit materials are things that either they're one-time costs, and then the consumable materials that come with the kits would be items that we would be purchasing through our regular budget funding anyway, through either site-based money or curriculum budget. So the upfront costs are for some of the kit materials that will be utilized for many years.
Is that a, like, so one more follow-up?
Sure.
Like, so is that is a kit is like a like PCR kit, or what kind of is that?
So a kit would have all the materials to do all the lab activities that go along with the.
So talk about one of them.
So for example, the 7th grade this year did a pilot unit where they had hydroponics. So the kit contained all the materials to put together the hydroponic tank so that, students could have that. It also had all the materials to do the labs and things like that.
Wonderful.
So we purchased the tank because we didn't have those before, but what Pam's not saying is that she repurposed a lot of other things that would have come with the kit because we had some things that we could make work in order to support the pilots leading up to this. So one of the things that I think is really effective as a result of that pilot approach is that there are a lot of teachers who saw the value of the curriculum and are excited about it and are thinking about how can we efficiently repurpose some of the things that we have purchased with the old science curriculum,
Yes.
So that we don't have to expend too much. But what are the things that we're investing in order to make this new curriculum work? Is that the best way to?
I think so.
No, thank you. I think I strongly believe in hands-on learning, rather than just reading the book and then saying, okay, I got something, but then having that visually, touching it, trying it, and understanding it, it stays for a longer time, and it motivates kids to pursue those career paths in the long run. So it's a wonderful start. Wonderful. Once again, thank you very much for the efforts, and all the best with this program.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the report and for all the work that went into you and your team securing these funding sources for us. And I also appreciate Ms. Clowder's comments about the professional development aspect of this and how that's going to be extremely helpful to kind of really create a great foundation for the use of these funds and for the program going forward. So thank you very much. Dr. Sawyer?
Thank you. Ms. Porch has been a very long time member of our science team as a teacher, and then for the last many years as the coordinator at the middle level, and has had a terrific impact. And this is another way that she's continuing to find ways to invigorate our program and make it as bring best practices to our students and our faculty as best we can, and really appreciate the time and effort. I know we've talked recently in different ways about the DMG report and the recommendation that to make sure we're building into the budget as much as we can year-to-year costs around curriculum materials and curriculum needs. And so we're not reliant on grant funding or one-time philanthropic funding. At the same time, it doesn't mean we're not trying to get them wherever we can take pressure off of the budget, because there are things, just as the last technology presentation, there's some tech that we'd like to get, but is not going to fit in next year's budget as things stand right now. But when we are able to take dollars that we might have spent on science kits and have a foundation pay for them, it frees up those dollars to do something different under our budget cap. So it's really valuable. We appreciate it, and thank you to Ms. Poitras and Ms. Clowder, and certainly I wholeheartedly recommend that you vote to accept these funds.
Okay, so we need to take 2 votes.
Can I
Oh,
a second? Ms. Clowder probably knows what I'm going to say, but I would love in a future meeting if we could have some scientists come and show us off like some of the experiments. I would like to see that in action.
Yeah, I think I don't might be being too bold here, but like you could see some of them as a school committee member in action.
Yeah.
We have
Yeah.
pilots underway.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty exciting to see what they're working with.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. May I have a motion that the committee vote to accept $68,400 in grant funding from the 1-8 Foundation, which will be distributed over 3 years to support middle school Open SciEd implementation at Sherwood Middle School starting in the 26-27 school year.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor shall signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. May I have a motion that the committee vote to accept $69,900 in grant funding from the 1-8 Foundation, which will be distributed over 3 years to support middle school Open SciEd implementation at Oak Middle School starting in 2026-2027 school year.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor shall signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And the motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda will be a report regarding charter schools and school choice, and the school choice public hearing, and a vote on the status of school choice for the 2026-2027 school year. Mr. Girardi will provide enrollment and financial information relative to charter schools, school choice, virtual schools, and students who are homeschooled in the district. A memo regarding school choice was enclosed in our packets, and additional material was provided to us. The school committee is required to hold an annual school choice hearing and vote on whether or not they wish to accept any school choice students from other communities for the upcoming school year. Tonight's public hearing will satisfy the requirements of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 76, Section 12B, which requires a public hearing prior to a potential school committee vote to not participate in or to otherwise restrict the provisions of the inter-district school choice program. The committee will vote on whether or not to participate in school choice following this public hearing. Given the space limitations at Shrewsbury High School outlined in the report, the recommendation has been that no new school choice seats be opened for the 26-27 school year. So, Mr. Girardi?
Great, thank you. And thank you for that introduction. I think I'll just jump right in here. I'll take us to charter school enrollment first. Each year we have students who are enrolled in charter schools around the area. In 2025-2026, there are 26 students from Shrewsbury who are attending local charter schools. This slide here outlines the schools in which they're attending and how many students are attending each school. The school in which we send the most students to, and this is pretty typical, is the Advanced Math and Science Academy in Marlborough, where we have 13 students going, 6 students at Abby Kelly Foster Charter Public School in Worcester, 2 students at Francis W. Parker Charter, 2 students at Worcester Cultural Academy, and 3 students at Learning First Charter Public School. And this slide here just shows which grade level in which those students go to. It is more heavily loaded towards the high school or upper grades, where we send students to advanced math and science in Marlborough. And this is charter school enrollment history since 2007. Just some visuals here. As you can see, that the numbers have come down significantly since the aughts, the 2000s, and the early 2010s. And then it's stabilized pretty well in the 2020s, somewhere in the mid-20s, with a low last year of 22 students. And then each year, the state does put out the school tuition and reimbursements. Currently, our net cost for Shrewsbury for sending students to charter schools is just over $366,000 is the net cost for Shrewsbury. The state reimbursement at full funding would be $62,819. Currently, the state's reimbursing at about 90%. As the budget becomes fully baked through the year, the potential of them getting to 100% is there. Thus, the annual average cost per pupil for FY26 is just over $14,000. It's important to note that charter tuitions, they're deducted from state aid that the town receives for education. It does not get paid directly from the school department budget. Moving on to school choice. The last time the school committee voted to accept school choice students was in 2016. It was limited to a total of 30 students spread across 4 grade levels based on where there was space at particular schools and sections. And at that time, 27 of the 30 seats were filled. The reason why it was opened in 2016, the primary reason was it was financial, due to a lack of resources to maintaining programming and staff. So since 2016, which I believe these 4 students were enrolled in 2nd grade, they're currently in 11th grade, our final 4 students from that receiving group. They will be seniors next year, and so they will persist with us. If they continue through their senior year, we'll have 4 students next year as well. With school choice, you receive $5,000 per student from the sending district. So we expect to receive, or our school choice revenue for this year is 20,000 students. And then the box on the bottom left just shows the districts in which those students are coming from. Our school choice sending districts, there's 2 categories here. One is the traditional school district in which they're attending the public school. You can see that category on the left-hand side. We are up a bit this year on sending students, and primarily the number has increased with the Worcester Public Schools. So we have a subset of students that are attending different towns in the area, and then the largest portion is Worcester with 16 total students. This is grades K through 12. The second subset of our school choice is the virtual school enrollment. Currently, we have 28 students across the 2 programs, the TECA or TEC Connections Academy and the Greater Commonwealth Virtual School. The 35 students that we're sending to public schools, the traditional public schools, are spread across grade levels. And again, you can see there's a good chunk of them in grade 12 currently, and it does moderate pretty significantly in the lower grades from there. So our virtual school enrollment, currently 18 students are enrolled at TECA, 10 students at Greater Worcester Commonwealth. The virtual high school tuitions were increased at the beginning of the school year from just over $9,800 to $13,366 per student. That's a 36% increase. They did petition to the Department of Education that the $9,802, it was a pretty stable number for a number of years, and it was not keeping up with the pace of what the cost was for the virtual schools. So that increase did go into effect this year, and it does impact our district at that 36% increase. Again, these dollars are not coming directly from the school department budget. They're coming from what the town receives or has to pay out. So the virtual school enrollment, historically it's been over 50%. Right now it's at 44% of all Shrewsbury school choice students. So that number is moderated, and the sending students to traditional public schools has risen. And here's just a 2018, just a graph that shows students who have attended the virtual high schools each year since 2018, just to give you a sense of the flow of enrollments. And again, the highest enrollment was kind of post-COVID, and it's moderated since then. And so here's an enrollment history of students received versus students sending. Again, in that 2016-2017 school year, we received 27 students, and you can see in red how those 27 students persisted over the course of the time period, either graduating out or leaving to go back to their public school, or for some other reason, as we are down to 4 students currently. And school choice sending, again, that number's fluctuated but moderated up a bit as far as the trend goes. A lot of that has been due to the virtual high school enrollments, but again, the slight trend this year towards the traditional public school. So here we have a history of the FTE, or the students who have gone, the number of students who have, that we have received in the green portion, and in the rose portion. So I'm trying to get my colors correct here. The rose portion, it's those are the students that we're sending out, and then the tuition that's coming in for our school choice students, again for FY26 is 20,000 students. The dollars going out is just under $550,000. And that $550,000 is, that's an estimate based on the $5,000 per student sending to the traditional public school, plus the $13,000 and change for the students going to the virtual high school. And then there's some cost increments for students who have special education services. Finally, we have our homeschool cohort, and currently this year we have 43 students who are being homeschooled this year. So to summarize, our charter school enrollment has remained much lower than in the past. It's a significant, financial benefit to the town of Shrewsbury and to our school department. The state is currently fulfilling about 90% of its target to fully fund charter school tuition reimbursements. Again, as the state budget becomes fully baked, that may adjust. Our school choice sending enrollment has increased for this current school year. Virtual high school enrollment has moderated since the pandemic. And once, this is important, is if we were to receive students, and the students that we received in 2016-17, is once they're enrolled at any grade level in Shrewsbury, they have a right to stay through grade 12. So as Ms. Boucher shared, this evening is to hold the annual school choice hearing. And again, the recommendation is not to open any new seats for school choice students due to space limitations primarily at the upper grade levels. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions and hear the vote.
Great, thank you. Any questions? No questions? No questions. And it doesn't appear anyone's here for our hearing this evening, so I think we can move to the vote. May I have a motion that the committee vote to not participate in interdistrict school choice for the 2026-2027 school year?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor shall signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And the motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Girardi.
Thank you.
We do have some minutes to be approved this evening. The minutes from the school committee meeting held on March 11th, the special meeting held on March 18th, and the workshops held on January 19th, February 4th, February 18th, and March 12th, 2026 were provided to the committee in advance of the meeting. Did anyone have any changes or amendments?
No.
Okay. If there are no changes requested, the minutes can then be accepted as distributed without a vote. And we do not need to go into executive session this evening, so may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, Ms. Fritz?
Aye.
Mr. Wensky?
Aye.
Ms. Sharifapur?
Aye.
Mr. Velgaputi?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Thank you and good night.